It's Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. For all your news on politics, business, and education, it's FloridaDaily.com. Now, here's your host, Ed Dean.
Welcome to another edition of Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. We do our own original content. We don't copy and paste like a lot of other publications. I am your host, publisher of FloridaDaily.com, Ed Dean. Also, again, all your news and information here in the state of Florida. Also, national issues brought down to you here, also on a state level, FloridaDaily.com. Our senior political reporter, Mike Sinan, and also our contributor, but also one of our political analysts, Michelle Ertel. So, Mike, let's look at a statewide area. I want to talk about some numbers, and I want to break them down by groups, ethnicity groups, and other groups out there that really showed up, what we saw last Tuesday. But the overall election, what did you see that maybe is not being reported by the media out there that the public needs to be kind of aware of? Like vote by mail, or what groups showed up? Was it a big day for the Democrats or Republicans?
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about vote by mail and how much more voting by mail there was. But when you look at the overall picture, the turnout wasn't dramatically different than it was in 2016 in the primary. I mean, we're still talking about 25% of the electorate showing up in a race that had a ton of important candidates and important things. So you're talking about 1/4 of the electorate. I mean, just for example, the city of Castleberry elected a new mayor. 4,000 people voted for that mayor. That's pitiful.
Yeah, but hold on. But, Mike, did I not read the Secretary of State said, what was funny about this, we had no statewide elections, but we had more people vote by mail than we did in 2016 or 2018.
Okay, but if 25% of the electorate is only turning out, I mean, okay, great. We had more people vote by mail because they're concerned about coronavirus. I mean, whoop-de-doo. The three-quarters of the people still aren't voting.
Hey, to Mike's point, if I may add on, Michelle, you've covered this for years as a reporter and as a columnist. What was interesting, I really thought, is, traditionally more people, it's not the biggest spread, but more people early vote and vote the day of. This was totally different. I was even stunned. Over 60% voted by absentee.
Well, yes, they did. And Democrats seem to overperform from what they had done before. Usually it's Republicans that are all about the mail ballots, or what we used to call absentee ballots.
Right.
Republicans showed up. This time Democrats overperformed. Republicans showed up in person for early voting and on election day.
Michelle, explain to the audience, what do you mean by overperform? They showed up higher than numbers than what was predicted?
Correct. Well, than what they had done before, yes. 2.3 million ballots were cast. 59% of them were mail.
Yeah. And so, Mike, this is interesting. Let me break this down by groups. We got a story I think we're going to come out next week at FloridaDaily.com. Let me set this up. There were many people, Trump's numbers among those in the black community are higher. I'm not talking 25, 30%. It could be in the mid-teens. Some those that even report on this think that it's possible he could get the higher teens or 20% of those in the black community. Was that enough to swing an election? Joe Biden, we all know, based on conventional wisdom, those in the black community overall will vote for Joe Biden. This is what's interesting. You had some big races down in the Naples area for congressional race, up in North Florida. You got some maybe live in South Florida. And we're looking at the numbers. You had major turnout by those in the black community. For example, the former sheriff Israel down there in Broward, the current black sheriff that was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis, he defeated him. You've got major of those turnout where Kim Daniels, a moderate Democrat who's black in North Jacksonville, she got defeated by one of her own. You got a sheriff in Alachua County who was a state rep defeated somebody who's been there in the Democratic Party as the sheriff for 16 years. Those in the black community came out and heavily vote. Now, most of that election in November was already done last Tuesday. The question is, Mike, will they come out in strong numbers like they did last Tuesday? I'm thinking they may do this in November.
Yeah, and I can't see any reason why that wouldn't happen given the amount of attention that's been paid to social justice issues in the black community. So what is it that you can effectively do if you are a member of the black community that you haven't done already? I mean, you may have gone out and protested, but more likely than not, what you can do to immediately affect social justice is to go and show up at the polls in November. And there's going to be a large push in the black churches for this to happen. And every other segment of that society, there's going to be a big push to vote just for the simple fact that that's the easiest way to achieve social justice.
Right. And Michelle, I'm going to tell you this. I mean, if a lot of them then also did early voting as well. I don't think it's had anything to do with John Lewis, not even Kamala Harris as well. They came out and voted because they were addressed. And I think the Republicans, of course, I've said this on my radio show for years, they've done a horrible job addressing those in the black community. Having said this, I wonder if the Republican Party, I mean, they're thinking, well, Biden's not, the 1994 crime bill, those in the black community aren't going to come out and vote for him. Let me tell you something. They showed up. Whether they vote for him or not, I think Republicans had better look out and sit back and say, we need to start addressing more issues maybe on school choice. And this is an area where the Democrats maybe so far now don't have a future lockdown on. But if you're thinking about groups that normally don't vote for Republican that may defeat Republicans in November, you got to look at how big of a turnout the black community had last Tuesday.
We absolutely have to look at it. Look, there is a movement called Blackout the Vote where folks are and women have done this for years, right? People have decided that they're just going to vote for all women on the ballot. So there are some folks in the black community, and there's been a push to make sure that you vote, that folks vote for black candidates. And so I think we saw that, but Republicans have got to do some major, major outreach. Herman Cain was a great spokesperson for this, but he's not here anymore. We need more, and we need more like within the next 30 days.
Ed, let's be clear though. Ed, let's be really clear though about what's going to happen in this election in 2020. This election will be decided in the same place where Republicans lost their majority in 2018 and may continue to lose in 2020 unless they turn it around. And that is in the suburbs. Whether you're white, black, or Hispanic, doesn't matter. It's the suburban voters that have abandoned the Republican Party in the previous two elections. And that's where Republicans have to make up the ground again.
Let me talk about, go ahead, Michelle. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's the suburban housewife. That is a huge thing. And folks like me and a little younger, we're worried about safety. We're worried about our children. We're worried about our communities. And can we go downtown for a bite to eat without a riot? And I think that's what we're going to see. And I'm not sure that the Democrats are bringing that. They're bringing just the opposite. So I do think that we're going to win back suburbia.
All right, let's go. I want to get into, if I have a little bit of time here in a moment, I don't use the word scam lightly. As a journalist, all of us have been reporters for years. You talk about a story you may use about, hey, an investigative story talks about a scam that's doing with identity theft. Mike, I don't use this word lightly, but what is the biggest scam right now? What's going on currently with the U.S. Post Office, which is being talked about how Trump's trying to stop people's votes, taking away mailboxes, which thousands happened under Obama administration. And Mike, let me use this other word. The scams being put on by the Florida teachers unions about keeping schools closed as they keep moving back the goalpost. Where's this going in the upcoming election? We
don't really know because we've never lived in this world before exactly how safe schools are. So I'll go with the post office as the bigger, what you call a scam. Look, the post office has been in decline and its days were numbered since the day the first email was sent. I mean, there's no doubt about why the post office is struggling and will continue to struggle. But we don't really know the full effect yet of what's going to happen when a child contracts coronavirus or a teacher contracts coronavirus. And the procedures vary from county to county as to who is going to be quarantined for how long, what the procedures are going to be on notifying other parents. So I'll go with the post office as the much bigger deal. People are going to get their mail delivered. And if you put your ballot in time, then it's going to be delivered to your supervisor of elections office. I mean, my suggestion would be just drop it off at the supervisor of elections office if you're going to vote by mail, vote early, or vote in person.
Mike, how about this? 470 million pieces a day go through the U.S. Post Office. If you're not happy with it, then download it. Also, let's say we have 150 million voters here, Michelle. You mean to tell me, 471 million they do a day? They can't handle 150 million over a month?
Yeah, they've got big problems. So what you mentioned before, has got me a little jazzed up with teachers unions. You and I have talked about this before, and I am not a fan of teachers unions, right? Yeah. I think they are bullies, and in this particular situation with COVID, they're not doctors. They seem to think that their knowledge should keep them from going into the classroom, yet they're still getting paid. I think what we're going to see from this is we're going to see parents choosing, a lot of them, to keep their children home. And there are going to be people that are without jobs. And teachers that are without jobs, and when this drops below 50%, when the unions have to disband, I think that we're going to see fewer unions. And I think there's going to be teachers without work. And I think we are going to right size the schools, the school districts, and the classrooms.
Let me play one of the clips here on the vote by mail.
Also on the rise, the number of returned ballots being rejected.
This was a story, and I want to get back to the teachers in a moment. We're lumping both of these with the post office and with the teachers union. This was a clip from MSNBC. Shaquille Webster talks about how, and I like the absentee ballots, but when you want to, they talked about the states that have shut down the in-person voting because, I mean, as you pointed out, Mike, not many people are voting. It's like a business. If there's not much there at that store, then we'll limit the hours and focus on the store that's getting the most part of the business. Listen to this clip by MSNBC where they talk about they've already had problems in Florida, California, and Kentucky. Listen to this clip.
Also on the rise, the number of returned ballots being rejected.
To stop the coronavirus spread, states like Kentucky slashed in-person polling locations, but expanded absentee voting. Votes by mail jumped, but so did the issues with those ballots. 102,000 votes tossed in California, nearly 20,000 rejected in battlegrounds Ohio and Florida, and in Kentucky, more than 32,000. The most common issues: missed deadlines, unsealed envelopes, and missing signatures.
I was stunned, Michelle. That was done by MSNBC. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and let me tell you, from having watched multiple counting of votes, including in the 2000 election where they went over the military overseas ballots, almost every single one of these issues where a ballot is rejected by a canvassing board is voter error. I cannot emphasize to you enough, and to those who may want to vote absentee, to look at, read, and follow every single instruction on that ballot, because that's why they're being rejected. Now, there are some cases, okay, where there's confusion about the legitimacy of a signature on a return ballot. And we're talking about workers at an elections office that are not trained people in reading and understanding signatures. But the vast majority of these are people who simply did not follow instructions. So if you are going to vote absentee, please follow every instruction to the letter.
Michelle, back to you on the teachers unions. They, with the advice of the local unions here, okay, they, in May, we talked about this. We've done articles at floridadaily.com. We've exposed the teachers unions. We've showed where in May and June, with the advice of the teachers unions, many of these school districts, whether there was a 20% case of COVID, by the way, you notice the numbers are less than about 2% now. The numbers have been really coming down, not being reported by the media, by the way, that they were already expected to deal with COVID cases and the safety issue no matter what. To your point, they had this done back in June. And now they put up this fraudulent scam of a lawsuit. Well, we wanted to leave it to every school district. Every school district is doing differently safety measures, which has been in accordance with what they've advocated with the CDC guidelines. Now, you've got school unions, you got the NEA president, what's her name, Becky Pringle. The unions are saying, well, now we want to focus on students of color that may not be getting enough money in our schools. Well, that's not a safety issue. This is nothing more than to extort more money. The unions had already approached this in June to reopen up schools, and now they're coming out going, well, maybe we don't want new COVID cases. Well, good luck. That's not going to happen. And so they were already addressing the safety issues. I think the only way to sit back and have a little fun with this, Michelle, is maybe Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump should tweet, I agree with the teachers union lawsuit. Guess what? They'll open up tomorrow, wouldn't they?
They would. They want to be contrary. They want to be a bully. They want to, they want to get. But look, they have a job. We all have jobs. We go to work. We get money, right? They want to work. They want to work on their terms, and they want to work their way. And COVID is just an opportunity for them. And frankly, it frustrates me. It harkens back to the days of Jimmy Hoffa bullying, just do it, what I tell you to do, or else we're going to sue you and cost the state a whole lot of money. It's
Jimmy Hoffa Bowling. I got to remember that one. Mike, I know next week we're going to talk more, especially coming up on Labor Day. We're going to be focused on, you've got the all primary votes coming up. You've got the minimum wage votes coming up out there as well. So there's a lot of big statewide issues that have normally been under the radar. I know we're going to discuss on here on Florida Daily TV and also at floridadaily.com. Mike Simon, our senior political reporter, and Michelle Ortel, our contributor and also political analyst. It's good to have you on today. I am your host, Ed Dean, publisher of Florida Daily. Again, Florida Daily TV right here on floridadaily.com.